Look, we're stuck in the system, we can't get out. It's time for a change, stop running your mouth. I'm looking for words, but I can't get it out. Look for the light, but the sun blotted out.
Hold on, let me hop on the beat. Cause social injustice and prisoner mindset is something we gotta defeat. We idle these hoes and wear all these clothes with shoes that can't be creased. Steady looking for substance and change, but we searching all up in these streets.
Got a stain on my shirt that I can't get out. My people on high like the top of the mount. We thirsting for truth, but there's no spout. Look for a savior, but no one around.
But no one's around, but where do they look? It ain't in the church, it ain't in the book. We can't get a job, so we rather crook. They got us in chains, a fish on a hook.
Look, harvesting not bodies, harvesting not organs. Got them real big mad, cause they culture boring. Pimping the poor, Jim Crow at the door. Selling our souls, our daughters a whore. I wanna give in, can't take it no more. Don't wanna believe our people are more.
We swept our cup when we look at decline. We got a new bottle, it's filled with...
Hello. Welcome back to another Malcolm Make a Culture Move podcast, where we cover everything from intense social topics to funny social trends. We are your hosts, Mark Jonathan.
Tabitha.
G.
And we have a special guest today. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Elijah.
Yo, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
I cannot hear y'all.
For real?
I cannot hear y'all at all.
Okay.
Okay.
So today we have young activists down there who might want to log out and log back in. But yes, y'all. Today we have a special guest. His name is Young Activist. He is a youth social activist, and he wants to make a move for his people apparently. And we definitely appreciate him for his,
All right, cool. We good.
Okay, you can hear us now?
Yeah, I think there was some sound in the background that was messing up this sound.
Okay. But yeah, so go ahead and introduce yourself. I did a horrible job of doing it. My apologies. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you.
Hi, how y'all doing today? My name is Elijah Judah, also known as Young Activist. And it's a pleasure being on, Make a Chess Move. We always on gear, making our next move, our best move, like always. Shout out Phil.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us today. So, I guess we can go ahead and hop right into it.
So today I decided to talk about, the lies that are told about us, people of color, and what happens is a lot of times we end up, getting killed because of it. I mean, we know about, people like Emmett Till and stuff like that, but I was reading this article where this 37-year-old, well, not 37-year-old, he is 60-something. He just got out of prison. He did 37 years in the penitentiary because somebody lied on him and said that he got into a fight with somebody at a bar. They set his house on fire and then they killed the person that was in the house. Not only did he do time for arson, but he did time for murder. So, y'all, he was looking at a life sentence. And it was because 37 years later, somebody wanted to tell the truth as to why this man ended up getting out of prison. And the person that did the lie, no charges were held against that person. But before we even get into that, I want to lay the foundation with this article. We all know the Emmett Till story, so I just kind of wanted to get into this article.
So real quick here at Malcolm, the views and topics that we discuss do not represent Malcolm as a whole. We have our individual opinions here. So if we say something that you don't agree with or don't like, don't hold Malcolm accountable for that. But yeah.
Oh, thank you for that, G. We definitely forgot the disclaimer. No one said anything anyway. Anyways, though, this article, you see that like they have Emmett Till as the head photo. It says being black in a world where white lives matter. So white lives matter, y'all. If you didn't know, now you know. Last week, Vanity Fair reported that the woman who in 1955 accused 14-year-old Emmett Till of sexually harassing her in a Mississippi store, leading to the black teen's gruesome murder, fabricated her account of that day. In his new book, The Blood of Emmett Till, Duke University professor Timothy B. Tyson writes the Caroline Bryant Donham, who was married to one of the men who killed Till in 1955, admitted in 2007 that the Black teen never verbally or physically abused her. This contradicted statement she made during the slain teen's trial, where she testified that Till grabbed her hand, clasped her waist, and told her that he had been with white women before. So yes, I'm just gonna stop it there. Did not know that they actually went to court for that. And that they were saying that he actually assaulted her. From what I remember being told in school, which, you know, they lie all the time about information, that the information that we get in schools is always never 100% true. But they said that he had whistled at her, and that was like everything that led up to, you know, the murder. I don't know. So I don't know if y'all have anything you want to say on that one, but that's something that's old that we all pretty much know about.
I mean, I know it's crazy. A couple of years ago, I don't know, between, I can't think exactly what year, but it was like 2012 is when they originally came out and said that it was a lie. And because of the statute of limitations, that's the excuse they use as to why nothing needed to happen to the woman or, you know, the counterparts that played a role in that. And it's crazy because it's like, you know, you look at movies like Rosewood, and it's like this is why I have a problem when Black men date white women, because you look at situations like this and it's like they lie and lie and lie and lie and lie on us all the time, and we always get beat down and killed for it. But what happens to them? What happens to them? They get to go home to their family, sit down around the dinner table, and talk about which Black person's life they ruined today.
Just to add on to what you guys were already saying, I mean, like, the stories are always told in like the view of, or the perspective of the victor, or the person who's seen as superior. Even we see it throughout like the history that we learn in schools, or at least that I learned in school. It was always told in the perspective of the person who ended up victorious in whatever happened, whether it was a war or battle, anything like that. So just to relate that to this situation, like, we'll never hear Emmett Till's story, one, because they killed him, but like, even if he was alive, like, they would have never believed him, because they're gonna always take their perspective.
I find this historically accurate to how white folks been acting even before then, like before 40, 50 years before Emmett Till was even murdered. When you look into the Rosewood Massacre, I believe that was in like 1919. Rosewood Massacre was based off of the raping of a white woman that never happened. There's a movie that y'all could watch. It's I think the movie is called Rosewood, and it goes into the history on how that entire Black city basically was like murdered. Like 60 or 70 people was murdered, from mothers to children to fathers to brothers, you know what I'm saying? And on top of that, same thing with the Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921 Black Wall Street. Same thing happened. It was about a white woman, you know what I'm saying, dealing with the Black man in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It ended up going to court. The juror came out. They seen a bunch of Black people in arms with guns. They got scared. So at nightfall, they came down and they burned down the city. And you know what I'm saying? Hundreds from that. And you see it, you know what I'm saying? Even today, like with the George Floyd situation that happened last year, allegedly the cop, his daughter was messing with George Floyd at one point, and they was already dealing with each other, being night security from 20 plus years at a local like night security club in Minnesota out there. So this is nothing new. when it comes to black men, especially dealing with white women, of controversy because of black men's death 9 times out of 10, especially on a scale of when the white man has power. And so, what we got to understand as people, when we deal with other nations that we are unfamiliar with, that are dangerous, warfare creatures, what happens is we putting ourselves in a position of danger, and we got to understand what it means to be with our own, because it's historically every time it ends up bad for us.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And y'all all make very good points. Even with George Floyd, I don't know what happened up until like up to, George Floyd dying. And thank you for, shedding some light on that because I did not know that it had anything to do with the daughter. I seen like, a bunch of articles that said that, George Floyd and the cop that murdered him both worked in the same club. But outside of that, like, and that just kind of tells you, like, it already is like premeditated.
It is,
And
because like when you there's pictures of him with George Floyd's daughter and like a bunch of white girls. He got his arms around like 2 or 3 on both sides. Like this man was weird. Like this dude George Floyd was in like pornos and a bunch of other stuff. He was a whoremonger, and like a lot of people don't even look into that information. He was like a fiend for white girls, and this ended up in the death of him because a white father couldn't take it no more, and he had the power to persecute him. Real talk, but people don't look into that information.
horrible. And I definitely get what G's saying, but I don't even seeing like the history of what happens when we do, interracially, deal with anybody. It always ends bad. It always either one, you have to like turn a blind eye to the plight of your own people and kind of be on the same page as the person that you're with, or two, I mean, I don't know. There's some white people that think that they're black, and I just think that that's some culture vulture stuff. I don't necessarily agree with it because you're reaping the benefits of being black, but you're not actually black. I don't. That's kind of like what the Kardashians and stuff do. They keep up. They set and keep up with black trends, but they're not black. So they could, enjoy the culture without actually, you know, without actually
being and dealing with the bad, the negative and the toxicity that comes along with it. They just get the glory and everything that comes, the glory that we don't get, they get. And it's crazy because like I just think of like, when black women or black men date white, you gotta think, you gotta ask that question. Did you tell your family I'm white? Who wants to go through that? And if you're not asking the question, then something's wrong with you. Because it's important. That is a very important question to ask in interracial relationship. When you're black, you should want to know, did the counterpart tell their family that you're black? Because if they didn't, and you walk into this white fulfilled home where there's all white people, you don't really know what you're walking into, because guarantee you somebody's racist, right? Somebody got their Confederate flag swinging. Somebody is pro Trump 100%, So you gotta think about those things. You gotta ask, did you tell them I'm white? Like in the movie Get Out, and she was like, why would that matter? Well, because y'all are harvesting black people. That's why it matters, because now my life is on the line. Y'all trying to take my brain, my eyes, my heart, my lungs. You don't have to worry about that with black people. With black people, it's you're black, I'm black. I'm assuming your family black. I'm just gonna go ahead and walk up in here. We're gonna be cool together. You can't do that with white people.
No, it's definitely taboo. Cause like when you bring, I seen a post a few weeks. I mean, honestly, it might have been a few days back on Facebook, basically saying if you date outside your nation or race, you failed as a parent. You know what I'm saying? If one of your children do that, and I definitely can agree to that, because I think as a people we have to understand what real self love looks like. I mean, shit, like when you go shoot to like, there's still people lightening their skin in America to this day. You know what I'm saying? Um, have a hard time having self love as a people because we so busy trying to be white. Um, that we don't really understand what real blackness looks like, real blackness understanding. And I think that's really important as a people to understand. Um, because I don't know, white people are weird. They have a lot of fetishization.
Weird.
They have a lot of fetishization towards us, and I don't really understand, what the beauty is with being with white folks when they've only showed their ugly side to us. You know what I'm saying? Outside of looks, I can understand why you might be attracted to one, but like I don't understand the beauty of marrying one. You know what I'm saying? Having children with one, because then like when you have children, you got a black little girl with a white mom. She's not gonna understand how to do her hair. You know what I'm saying? She's gonna push her honestly to feel more white than black because she doesn't understand the black experience. Like that's crazy to me. It's baffling. And then what if they say the N word? You know what I'm saying? There's just a lot of things that like
It's a lot of things you got to think about. Like, and just imagine like with stuff going on in the world. You feel me? All these things that go on in the world, and you wake up and you look at your white counterpart like, should I just strangle you or? Because like you wake up to this every single day, and what are their reactions to what's going on in the world? How are they responding to what's going on in the world? What are their responses in front of you and not in front of you?
I don't think
worry
that.
about that.
I don't think that, but that's the funny part though, because we have so much love for the people that are oppressing us. I don't think the thought to strangle that person would ever cross your mind because you're so mentally oppressed. Mentally, like it goes into that. I don't know if you've ever seen. I don't even know what movie it was, but there was a black slave that was shaving the neck of the slave master, right? And then he's like, you're not afraid to have this slave to have the knife so close to your throat? Well, he was like, this man has served my family for generations.
Samuel Jackson was.
And the thought to ever, the thought never, the thought, that Samuel Jackson was a coon, but in that movie, but the thought would never cross his mind to cut his slave master's throat because at the end of the day, he was so mentally oppressed and he hated his own people to the point where his love was so deeply embedded in him that he would never have any harm come to a slave master. It goes into what Malcolm X said. The field slave sees the master differently than the house slave.
I actually want to go into that point. Well, even before I do, the crazy part is somebody said that I was doing reverse racism, right? So I reposted a post like this week on Facebook, and it was about the football situation that happened, and the dude, I forgot his name, but the white dude, like we was going in strangling the black girl, and this dude posted in my post, he said, this is why you can't get with these folk out here, they being devils or something like that. And I was like, right, yeah. And then some white girl who I've done like a few different things in the community with, she was just like, what? This is reverse racism. How can you call yourself an activist and say things like this? You know what I'm saying? You're no different than, these white Confederate racists out here, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And it just shows how much of an act a lot of these community leaders put into play. They're about inclusion, but don't realize that they're creating confusion within their own race. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these dudes out here, with white girls and with all these other people don't even have real embracing of their own true people. You know what I'm saying? And it just shows because, like, at the end of the day, Martin Luther King's agenda is not the agenda for our people. It's never really worked for our people or our community, but these white folks push that so hard. And they're like, you can't be a leader and not include white folk. Like, bro, that's white privilege in itself, bro. And I just found that interesting.
I think that is interesting. Oh, go ahead, Mark. I know you want to say something.
I mean, just to the points that a young activist was making, I mean, one, reverse racism is like that term in itself is just ridiculous to hear because are y'all anti-inclusion completely?
Well, finish what you're saying. I ask that question.
Who said?
Okay.
I can't see it in the comments. I'm on my phone. Are y'all anti-inclusion completely? No, bro.
Hold on. So I mean, really, just the whole the reverse racism. Dang, I really want to get to that too, though. But reverse race, like if you look at the definition of racism in itself, it requires superiority. So, like, I don't really understand how our people could be racist, especially when we're only to empower our people. Like, it doesn't. I never understood that. The people who compare Black Lives Matter to KKK, I don't understand that in the slightest. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I gotta say. But we could go ahead and jump to his question. Uh, Me personally, we're all for the empowerment and better art of our people. I'll just say that. That's all I can really say to answer that.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I'm gonna touch on it because I know Elijah is gonna have a lot to say on it. But for me personally, I am anti-inclusion 100% because I'm telling you, when we got integrated into these white people's schools and their institutions, our reading scores, our graduation rates and stuff like that went down dealing with people. So when it comes to inclusion, I don't think that we're going to be able to ever progress as a people until we start focusing on ourselves and what's going on with us, because all this inclusion is the detriment of our community as a whole. The Black families are barely surviving because the only way we feel like we're going to make it economically is by joining up with our oppressor and, becoming a bed wench or a buck to a white female. Like, that's the only way we feel like we've made it, is when we're reaping the economic benefits of our white counterparts. Like, at the end of the day, like, how is it that the plight of my people is going on all around me, all around us, but you claim to be colorblind? But even blind people, colorblind people see shades. So there's no way there's no way that inclusion is going to be the best option for us as a people ever.
Hey, what's up, Korean man? Hey, that's my man's. Hey, to also turkey back on that point. When it comes to, like, for example, the so-called Hispanic community, the indigenous populations, a lot of them struggle and have the same plight. And there's, people, certain people in the Philippines and other parts of the world that struggle very similar to that Black people in America. Very similar. You know what I'm saying? Even was like in slavery at one point, just like us in the Atlantic slave trade, struggled, had their religion, their names taken away from them, a bunch of other stuff. And when you go into that, I mean, historically, our people spiritually are everywhere across the globe. So I can't 100% say that I can't be anti, because you never really know. You know what I'm saying? There's people out here who look white and aren't, like Jason Kidd, for example, who played, in the NBA, or there's very, very light-skinned people who look almost Caucasian, you know what I'm saying, who are our people. But when it comes to specifically our people, at the end of the day, I mean, you got to understand, bro, when you look at other communities, like, for example, the Asian community, they got Chinatowns everywhere. Nobody's trying to be included in them. You don't see white folk over here trying to wear monk outfits and stuff and trying to push into their community hella hard. They like their fighting styles and all that. But nah, they stay within their own community. You got Jewish centers. There's one on Leesdale in Colorado right now that you can go to where it's strictly gated community Jewish people. They even got their own King Supers down there. Like, at the end of the day, nobody's over there being like, hey, man, I'm trying to come into the synagogue and be right with y'all. You know what I'm saying? Same with the Arab community. There's even like an Ethiopian center with a mosque for a Muslim temple. I think that's down there, Leesdale too. Nobody's trying to push hella hard when it comes to those communities. But when it comes to our people and our communities, everybody wants to be rappers. Everybody wants to be ball players. They want to dress like us. They want to act like us and talk like us because we're so influential. But when it comes to actually supporting us economically, trying to give us civil rights and opportunities, nobody's down for that. They ain't even down to say Jesus is Black. You know what I'm saying? If you're not even down to prove that our history has been taken from us, stripped from our lands, and is willing to help economically with that, bro, I can't be included with you because you're willing to live in a lie and then just hug me and say you're my friend.
Right. Exactly.
That makes sense.
I am anti-integration when it comes to our education, when it comes to our politics, when it comes to relationships. I'm anti-integration. White people When it comes to our medical needs, I don't take antibiotics because there's no way in heaven, hell, or earth you can tell me that the antibiotics you prescribe in white people is going to do me justice the same way. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm pure blooded. Black people are pure blooded. Our DNA is completely different. So that's why I don't take antibiotics. You can't convince me. You cannot convince me that ibuprofen is going to do the same for me that it do for white people. You can't convince me that none of their drugs is going to do the same. It doesn't. It doesn't. You feel me? Our education. That's why our little black kids get labels put on them at a young age when they're not disruptive. They're not disrespectful. You feel me? They're overactive. Our entire culture is overactive. When you have black teachers and faculty members who understand that they know how to deal with those kids. Okay, you a little active. Y'all a little rowdy today. We might need to have class outside. You know, y'all a little rowdy. Let me put y'all in an environment where y'all can be comfortable. Because being confined to a classroom and a desk for 8 hours as a child, they're gonna get antsy. White people don't understand that because they kids do just sit in corners all day. So they can't relate to us in any kind of way, relationship wise. Did you tell your family I'm black? You did? How did they respond? I don't want to have to deal with none of that. We shouldn't have to.
Right, but I want to kind of touch on Elijah Huff's point because he said respect. However, if our society was so perfect before,
because nobody else got cut off, so I'm going to finish my statement.
So
what I was continuously saying is that cut me off, you would have known that I was still talking and finishing my statement.
Your connection is.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't know.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Your connection's bad. You cut off.
Yeah, you just paused.
Yeah. Apologize.
It paused. Can you hear me now?
It's in and out.
Yeah, it's in and out right now.
But our apologies if you felt cut off. That was not the intention.
Yeah. It just got froze.
No, it's okay. I know it happens often though. That's why I had to say what I was saying because it happens often. So, but since my connection is a little rocky, go ahead, Tabitha.
No, say what you're gonna say, G.
We just concluded that my connection is rocky. So like I said, go ahead, Tabitha, because my connection is rocky. So I'm not going to be able to finish my statement if my connection is rocky. Go ahead.
All right. All I was going to say was to address Elijah Huff's point. He said respect. However, if our community was so perfect before white people, how come we sold each other into slavery? We know that other Africans captured other Africans and sold them to European slave traders. Where did those issues arise? Why do we blame toxicity solely on the Atlantic slave trade?
Please, can I answer this?
Go ahead.
Yo, that's one of the biggest misconceptions in American history, in world history. Black people, yes, there was some corrupt black people, right? You know what I'm saying? But what you got to understand is during that time period, a lot of our people was already ostracized from the rest of the African regions and worlds in the Western Hemisphere. Because what happened was because a lot of so-called Negroes during that time, which was the Kingdom of Judah, which was in the land of Benin, you could historically look this up. We had a king named King Heffen in the 1700s that was over that land in that region. He was very money hungry and made a few deals with so-called Africans. But overall, though, those Africans was already working with white folk. They was already working with Arabs and a bunch of other people, and they planned on enslaving and conquering us anyways. What you got to understand is a lot. Just because you're African does not mean you always my people. Just because we have the same skin does not mean we the same kin. That's not true. That's why you don't consider Asians, like for example Koreans and Chinese, the same people. You don't consider Japanese and Filipinos the same people, or Vietnamese. Just because you're African does not mean we the same people. In Nigeria right now, they got a name that they call so-called black people in America. It's coffers. That doesn't mean not all Nigerians ain't our people. There's plenty of our people all across the world. What you got to understand is just because Africans sold black people into slavery does not necessarily mean that's our own people. And then on top of that, to even prove your point more,
when we came to this side of the globe, white folk did not say Africans for sale. They said Negroes for sale because there was a difference between a Negro and an African. They did not consider us the same people during that time period. We was called Negroes, Judah. We had a different name than they labeled us as because we wasn't labeled the same. That's why there's such a big hatred with American blacks today and Africans because we're not labeled as the same people. It doesn't mean that we ain't got people today that are our people in Africa spiritually who understand who they are and who's willing to rock with us. The whole thing is there is a difference. There really is a difference.
Well, to address your point, Elijah Huff, he said not all white people are the same. I disagree. They're all the same because at the end of the day, yes, there are a few white people that have that savior complex, that have that white savior complex that believe that they could save all black people from the oppression that they put us under. You got to think about it. We were brought here in chains over 400 years ago. And if there were some good white people, there would be some of them advocating to send us back to where we came from. But at the end of the day, for them to do that, they have to recognize that they displaced and misplaced those Caucasian people that are in the land of Israel, because that's where so-called African Americans, Hispanics, and Native American come from originally. So in order for there to be good white people, there have to be white people willing to advocate for us to say that these are, we are who we are, basically. But instead, they're saying that these are African Americans. I've heard the argument that there are some white people that fought to free the slaves, and there were white people that fought to free the slaves, but just to make free Negroes out here saying that you don't got to pay for their medical care, you don't have to do X, Y, and Z, and it's all of it just to say that all white people ain't the same. We're not even really, this conversation isn't even to talk about white people. This is to talk about us and what's been done to us. When issues are brought up about our people, we want to include everybody and look at everybody but ourselves. It kind of goes into when we're talking about the Black Man's Guide to Understand the Black Woman. We want to bring all races of women into what is the Black problem. It's our problem, and until we address our problem and stop having everybody point out our problem, we're never going to be able to heal from what's going on with us, because we have too many of us worrying about the other people saying, well, inclusion. I went to a white institution. I got a white education. I graduated at the top of my class, and I still hate white people because I realized what they did to my people. And that I had to learn that in their institution and them sugarcoating everything.
He's asking a question. He said, I'm asking why can all the skin folk aren't kinfolk apply to white? It does, bruh. Jewish people do not say they are white people. Clearly they are. Like, honestly, if they take off that yarmulke off their head, bruh, they get pulled over by a cop. I guarantee you ain't gonna be like, oh, he's Jewish. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna smell different or something, bruh. Yes. Shit, Irish people don't claim they're white folk, bruh. Italians don't. There's a lot of white folk, Armenians. There's a lot of white folk out here who do not claim that they white, but clearly they look white. They look Caucasian. If they go to a black school, the niggas ain't gonna be like, oh, that's an Armenian right there. That's a Italian. That's a
German, Russian.
Yeah, bro.
Like,
yes, of course. Everybody on this planet does that. Every single person every nation on this planet that looks similar differentiates themselves based on their region in the world. Everybody. You can tell me a place that doesn't do that. Africans do it. Asians do it. White folk do it. Even Arabs do it. Afghanistans versus Pakistanians, like everybody does it across the world. But the thing is they have a history on who they are. We the only people on this entire planet that don't got no history because we got our names taken away from us. We got our beliefs taken away from us. We got our everything taken away from us. Our spiritual, all that has been taken away from us and stripped from us. We've lost our history. They were able to keep it. But yeah, bro. You remember, I don't know if I could say this word on here. It's not a bad word. But
just say whatever. It's an open platform.
Okay, word. So Jewish
and we
people,
gave a disclaimer.
Disclaimer for sure. Jewish people back in the day, it's not as much of a derogatory term, but back in the day, white people used to call Jewish people kikes in America. I don't know if y'all ever heard that before. A kike. I don't know what it means, but it was, yeah, bro. They definitely make a difference between their people. Like, what are you talking about? I don't understand that. Like, just because they hug us, we so emotional as people though, right? Because like once we give hugs and there's love going around, and we feel like the person's nice to us, we feel like they all about us. That, you know what I'm saying? This is crazy.
Okay, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elijah Huff, but I think he's talking more specifically to like the people who originated, or not necessarily not originated. Let me clear that up. Or the people who are in America right now. Why doesn't that all skin folk aren't kinfolk apply to those white people specifically?
I'm confused on the question. You don't know Irish people who be like, I'm not white, I'm Irish? You don't know?
Yeah.
I don't understand. That's in America right now. Like, I don't get that.
True.
Their privilege don't change. They ain't afraid of cops like we are. I'm like confused. Shoot, bro. Like,
so he clarified right here. Let me know if you can see it. Oh,
it says I'm not asking in terms of nationality. I'm asking on character. Your argument using the phrase based on the character of the governors of the African king, you were referring to, not on nationality. I'm confused. So what do you mean on character? Like the content of, not on on the Martin Luther King ideology and logic, like it's not based on somebody's skin color, but it's on the content of their character. I'm confused. Do y'all understand? I'm sincerely confused.
I'm sincerely confused. Honestly, the content of your character, I define honestly, when one Black person does one thing, right? They generalize they group all Black people together. That never happens with white people. If we group them all together based on the shit that they've done to us for hundreds of years, we will all look at them as murderers, serial killers, and rapists, and just all the stuff that they have done to us for all these years. But now they overall they have that general consensus and that ideology about how a Black person is. But us as a people, we're so confused. We don't have that same ideology with them. And why is that? Because we love our oppressors. That's the fact. We love them so much, we're willing to marry them, have sex with them, have babies with them, like all this other stuff in which we should not be doing. We should be focused on nation building and coming back together as a people and restoring that love and that relationship in between one another. But we're so focused on other races of people and what they got going on, and us having this, that our idea, the people that are so pro-Black, that we don't even want to even deal with the other nations of people.
That's because the ice is colder.
Exactly. It's like there's something wrong with you because you don't want to look at the big picture, so to speak. I'm looking at the big picture. That's the thing. I'm looking at it from a macro view, whereas people are looking at a micro view. Not all of them are so bad. You got to look at them overall and their history of what they've done. Okay, so they're saying that maybe there's like this consciousness that's going on, and maybe they realize what they've done and they're sorry and they're trying to make up for it. But in order to do that, you have to restore our nationality, our identity, our language, everything that you took from us. I mean, there's no way you can make up for that.
Why do you think? Okay, because I know a lot of us are so-called Christians, right? We call ourselves Christians, label ourselves as that. Scriptures say, "Gift destroyeth the heart." I believe we're so emotional as people today, as so-called minorities, right? We believe hugs, kisses, and love, and them coming to a couple protests with us, them giving us rides homes, you know what I'm saying? Them open up church groups. Because I remember in school, there was always white people who came to our schools that had church groups and stuff like that, and like would feed the kids, you know what I'm saying? Do these different things, do group prayers and all that, make the kids feel at home and like family. But what we don't understand is there's many different ways to skin a cat when it comes to internalized racism. But we don't understand that as a people because we just looking at like these good little things they're giving to us, these temporary satisfactions, which white folk is really good at. You know how many white folk will give you, $1 or $2 just to make you feel like they good white folk? There's a lot of people like that out here. That's that savior complex in their brain. They got to feel like they dominate over you, so they got to help out with a lot of different things. It's internalized racism, bro, but we don't see it.
You're not good enough to try to fix it as yourself as a people. You're not good enough to do that. You're too stupid to do that.
How white folk work? There's two different type of white folk. Pull yourself up by a bootstrap type white folk, which is usually Confederates, and then you got the liberal type white folk that's like, instead of teaching you how to fish, I'm gonna fish for you and give it to you.
Okay, so I brought Elijah on. I sent Elijah Huff a link so that he could clear up what he's trying to say. So I'm gonna go ahead and add him on the.
Ooh, controversy. Let's get it.
Hey, man, y'all
My
know when I
man.
jump in this space with y'all, I just like to play a little devil's advocate. Y'all know I be agreeing with about 98% of everything I be saying.
I don't know about that
I
one,
like
but
to do it for the sake of conversation. But
let's
really, just to clarify, my question with activists was when you said, when I brought up that Africans had sold other Africans to European slave traders, right? You said, well, basically, he gave up the history of the king and that he was that he had a character of greed, right?
yeah,
And
money
then
hungry.
your following comment was all skin folk and kinfolk. So when you made that comment, I thought that you were referring to more so his character, that just because he was of the same skin color of you, same continent, possibly same region, whatever your belief may be, he's not your kinfolk because of his character. I was wondering why, if that is what you were saying. Now, if that's not what you were saying, then that's my fault. That's my misconception of what you were saying. But if that's the case, how come that concept does not cross apply to white people? How come white people in today's era can't say, well, just because we come of the same privilege, heritage, advantage, I'm not going to operate the same as someone else because all skin folk ain't kinfolk. So that's what I meant by clarifying that up. So thoughts.
Okay. First off, this reminds me of ESPN. Like this reminds me of like Sports Center, like how they well what I feel. This is like woke Sports Center.
Hell yeah.
That's hilarious. But anyways, so you're saying no. Okay, so what I was going into, basically, there's a little bit of information because I don't think y'all understand this. There was black rulers up until at least easily the 1600s before we was even in slavery. 1700s, there was black rulers in Europe, all throughout Africa that were our people that were all stripped and enslaved by America, all of them. You know what I'm saying? What I was basically using that as an example for is just because you're African does not mean you are my family because you are African. Africans are not the same people as Negroes. Not all of them. Some of them are. You know what I'm saying? A good majority of them are, especially on the Western region, but a lot of them are not our people. So we cannot use that as an excuse to be like, well, there was evil black people too who put us in slavery. Because I guarantee you this, a lot of them didn't see it that way. There was a kingdom of Judah in the land of Benin. You can look this up historically, where we were ostracized by all Africans and betrayed and shipped off into America. Africans did not get along with our people. That's why when we came to this side of the globe, they said Negroes for sale, not Africans, because we didn't label ourselves like that. We wasn't the same folk. We never have been the same folk, and that's why they don't treat us like this today. You know what I'm saying? It don't mean everybody out there isn't our people, but a lot of them aren't.
So can I ask one question? Go ahead, Mark. No, go ahead, y'all. I'm listening.
I mean, I almost feel like he didn't necessarily answer your question on how it applied to white people.
Oh, you want me to answer that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, if you could, like, if you want to explain, like, why that does not apply to white folks. Like, how come white people can't say, I mean, I'm sure almost every European civilization has had their hands and fingers in slavery or colonialism. Right. But how come, just as you can argue every African civilization has had their hands and fingers in crime, punishment, hierarchy, or Negro. I want to separate our Negro, whatever the case may be. But I'm just asking is how come white people can't apply that logic as well?
So can I say one thing though? Because you said, why don't we look at people that have certain privileges? They have the same privilege, the same this, the same that. Their whole privilege is based on slavery and what has happened to us and our destruction, our mental, physical, and economical our destruction. So at the end of the day, it goes back to the point that I was making earlier. When you think of stereotypes, you have an African stereotype. I'm pretty sure when you close your eyes and you think of an African stereotype, you see somebody clicking their tongue or whatever. And when you close your eyes and think of a Negro stereotype, African stereotype does not even cross your mind. So there's a disconnection there. Even with the name African American, we're not African because African is really the name of the person that conquered Africa.
1987, Jesse Jackson made it. The term African American. It's only been around for like 30 years. African American. Like even when Malcolm X and the civil rights movement was hella heavy and prevalent, the word African American wasn't used during that time.
It was Negro mostly.
Yeah, Negroes or Afro Americans to the more astute, eloquent brothers like James Baldwin.
Right, but I'm just saying there's a disconnection there in between like what the African person, who the African person or the African man is, and who the so-called black person is. You know,
in America today.
Yeah.
So we don't have an identity. That's actually one of the key reasons I don't believe we could be racist as well, because we don't have an identity to be labeled as a race. You know.
Okay, so can I ask for some more clarification then?
For sure.
Mark, did you have something? Because I don't want to jump ahead.
Well, I also want G to tap into if her connection is any better.
If you're ready, G, you want to tap in on this?
Get that thing, G. Hold on, right there, boom.
Right. Okay.
Can you hear us, G? I don't know if she can hear us. I don't think G can hear us.
Nah, I can hear y'all. I'm out of signal or whatever.
Okay. Okay, so what I was going to ask is then, okay. So you're saying basically that because there is a disconnect between Negroes and Africans, correct? That logic of all skin folk and kinfolk apply, correct?
Yes.
That's why you can use that, right? But white people don't have no other disconnect.
They do. They just have so many more connections and privileges that we do. We wasn't disenfranchised. They was never disenfranchised or in slavery like we were. You know, the biggest mishap they ever had was that Jewish Holocaust. But even then, although millions of them died, they ended up getting the land out of it. And not only that, the quote unquote holy land of the world. So they got their reparations. And they was also just paid $60 billion just in 2020 alone, you know, in reparations. So they're getting benefits all day long. The difference is they do label themselves as different type of white folk. Even the Bible labels white people different types of white people. Not every white folk is the same, but they share the same type of oppression and mentality as a group of people towards our people. That's why you see us dying all around the globe.
Okay, so then that makes me ask a question of it makes me come to two questions. First, I'll jump away from this real quick and I'll jump to this. Is that, do you believe since there is a difference between the African and the Negro, correct?
Yep.
So how great?
Not necessarily. So the thing is there's a difference between some Africans and some Negroes. A lot of them, especially in the western regions of Africa, are our people. So I'm not gonna get my words misconstrued because there is some of us who are the same still to this day, but there's a lot of Africans that don't mess with us at all.
Okay, and does the difference, are we basing the difference based off of levels of oppression that Negroes faced when they came here in America? Is what makes them different? Is that a key identity factor? Like, what makes the separation and difference? Because what it's leading me to, what I'm ready to ask is how much do you weight the value between chattel slavery here in America and colonialism in Africa? Because I often ask the question in terms of like the level it changed the psyche of both demographics, because I do believe there is a disconnect, and I think that's why we have such a divisive mold between us. But then I want to know is like, do you guys value one more or the other? Does it give more precedence to us here in America that have endured that, more precedence to those who have faced colonialism? Because like you said, every African civilization all the way up to 1700 has been somehow dismantled by another European type of power. And whether that is through whether that is through chattel slavery or rather that is through colonialism. So I just want to ask you guys, does one weight more than the other?
No, to me, I mean, our so-called native indigenous brothers and Hispanic brothers and sisters was conquered and enslaved. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna pick lesser the two evils towards the wickedness that the white folk has done upon us. But there is a really large difference on how so-called African Americans impact the world versus so-called Africans. Let's get into it. For example, let's just look at entertainment and inventions alone. When you look at what's influenced by the world, it's not coming from Africa. It's coming from, our people in these hoods, tenements, and ghettos. From the dance move to the craziest trends going on. I mean, shit, we made sagging our pants cool. Like, what the hell, bro? How you make sagging your pants cool? You know what I'm saying? Not only that, you look at rapping, you look at singing, you look at blues, you look at country, all that came from our people. But if so-called Africans was the quote-unquote world power, the biggest influence when it comes to Black culture, why is nobody copying what they doing? You know what I'm saying? It's because there's a difference between a lot of Africans and a lot of so-called Negro men. We're not the same, you know, as a whole. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said before, we'll go up and wake up our people because a lot of them is indoctrinated with Christianity. A lot of them is indoctrinated with a lot of white supremacist structures out there. And so at the end of the day, my African brothers and sisters, by all means, we got to wake them up. But the thing is when it comes to influence and the power of how America works, it's ran around our people, period, point blank. That's the difference. That's why everybody wants to do what we do, bro. We ain't going to clubs banging on drums and bongo. We're not doing that.
So what if someone, and to open this too, because I want, as you guys get ready to respond, what if there was a cross argument for that to say, okay, culturally, no argument for that. But when it comes in terms of resources, global control, we still see how European powers heavily affect the continent. Like they're still investing in mining natural resources that are essential to production all across the world. Like, you know what I mean? So what would you, as you guys opening up the floor, what would you say to someone who makes that argument? Do you think that the cultural influence on Black people is more essential, or the fact that we are getting stripped of our natural resources that belong to our continent that literally fuels the production for everything else that runs in this world?
I've been talking too much. Anybody else want to say something? Because I'll for sure, I'll keep going. You know?
I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, there's not much that we could say or do about what's happening as far as like these people basically raping the world, raping people of their natural resources, raping people of their culture and their other aspects of their culture and their identity. That's literally what they do. I know we've all heard the term culture vulture. They're literally, we're already destroyed, literally, physically, mentally, economically, socioeconomic, like all aspects of us have been, you know, destroyed, literally. So when you think about, okay, so how do I undo this? Well, first you have to undo the hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression that have taken place here in the Americas. And that's already like, that's damn near impossible, because you think about it. We're racing, right? It's a Black man and a white man. You get a 400-year head start. You get property. You get all these different benefits from you having a head start. And us, we're just now entering into the race, and we're trying to catch up. Already, we're trying to focus on ourselves and how to get ourselves right. We can't really focus on everything else going on around us and what you're doing around us and what you're taking advantage of around us. So I don't know, like that, honestly, this is gonna be, and this kind of just goes into my faith. I believe like I gotta wait for Christ to come back for stuff to get set back in order, because at this point in time, there's so many obstacles that we face that there's no way that we'll be able to regain what we've lost.
And just to add on to that, my bad, I didn't mean to cut anybody off.
Nah, you good, bro. Speak your piece, man.
That just kind of leads me back to Ehud's original question when he asked if we're completely anti-inclusion. It's just hard to include when we were the only ones that been beat down and excluded. You feel me? It's like that's the only reason why I feel as if inclusion isn't our solution, because we have to better up our people and get some of that identity that Young Activist was talking about before we can do any of that including.
Okay, so then so that reads, thank you for leading me back, because that's my question for y'all, is do you guys honestly feel that hierarchy, supremacy, just all the toxic things that are inside of the American structure that we are oppressed by every day, you believe we solely learned that from white people, that did not exist in a mass multitude in our civilizations before our integration with white people?
If the show did, it's even proven in Egyptian history. In Egyptian history, they had court systems, they had dentistry, they had places in which people were punished in times of in times of breaking the laws of the land during that time. Yes, there was 100% a whole system and government taking place during the time of the Egyptian pharaohs. 100% historical. What white folk do is they take parts of the Bible, take parts of the most evil times in history, they put them together, and then you get poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
What? Y'all can't hear me?
No, we can hear you. Keep going.
Oh, okay, yeah, and then you get poisoned. So I was just wondering why you did that. I was like, you Kimbe Matumbo. Yeah, you get poisoned. Because remember, you see it today, how America's modern day Egypt and how they killed off and destroyed a bunch of the Israelites, which is our people today. You see it in modern day society. They got Egyptian symbols everywhere. You could see the influence on what white folk took and put in this land today, from the Greek world powers to the Roman world powers to all these world powers. They take all the evil stuff and then they put a concoction in it and then they sprinkle it on the hoods and the ghettos. And that's what you're seeing today when it comes to these court systems, the Jim Crow laws, the 13th Amendment. You see it everywhere because our people are the most destroyed by what's going on in today's society. So of course there was influence, but these white folk, that's why in Stokely Carmichael's speech he said, this is the flaw of Martin Luther King's movement. He's trying to make peace with a people who do not have a conscience. These people don't have a conscience. This world isn't based off of the feelings of white folk. Do not have feelings to feel bad for our people. Mm-hmm. It's temporary.
But I'm asking about we got that understood, but I'm asking about us. I'm talking about, let's rewind the clock. Let's paint a picture. Let's rewind the clock to 11 something, 12 something in the 12th century, 11th century, when we have pure African civilizations. Before the concept of Negro, before the concept of chattel slavery, before we were transported and transatlantic. Was there systematic oppression and hierarchy that is similar to the structures we see today, just absent of white people? That's my
question. You have to believe that there was. You have to believe that there was, because you look at what's going on in the African country, in different countries now today, and they still have different systematic oppressions going on for their people. So, it's ignorant to believe that it didn't. It's ignorant to believe that it didn't exist before, because it exists now. It exists now in African societies and countries and the oppression that they place onto their own people. So you have to believe that it happened before.
I think, well, in order for us to go off what to answer your question of before, like oppression before, like you have to think about it. And I was trying to think of this man's name. I'm glad this brother posted it. But this man right here, Leo Africanus.
Leo Scipio Africanus.
Okay, Scipio. I did not.
He was a Roman general who conquered Hannibal in the First Punic War.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's kind of the origins of the name Africa. Think about what happened in South Africa with the apartheid. All that stuff. Literally, what's going on with our people in Africa? Some of our people, we do have some people over there. With what's going on with there's always been somebody oppressing us because we refuse to get ourselves right. That's the reality of the situation. We have no love for one another. And that's something that we also lost in slavery. So to kind of answer your question, we've always been oppressed. And
no. I'm saying oppression by our own. See, I understand oppression. We've always been oppressed, but I just have a struggle with if there is an understanding, at least for some of us who believe. Now, I'm literally just playing question ball here. Okay. If some of us believe that we oppressed ourselves at one point, right. At one point when we were kings and queens, when we were the nobility, when we ran the courts, when we ran the society,
right.
When we oppressed those who were beneath us, whether it was stratified by income, nobility, family status, whatever the case may be. If we were doing that before white people were introduced to us, why do we focus more so as the white person who is hiding behind the power instead of focusing on the power itself? That's just where I want to know where it comes from. Because sometimes I think in the movement, we get so caught up in putting a white face in front of power, because it's 99% of the time because this is the space in which of history we live in. But instead of attacking just the white face, which sometimes I see as a ploy, why do we as a movement not look to attack power, to speak to G's point, when there are certain places in the world that are pro-African, pro-black, let's just say black skin, pro-black skin, that have, no matter what, every place has some kind of European control, but maybe less than other areas. We still see mass levels of oppression by our people, on our people. So why do we always focus so much on the white face and not the negative notions that come with power?
Yeah, like you're talking about in SARS. Like, for example, that's a perfect example. I'm familiar with the information. I'm not willing to back off of the history of oppression, period. I don't care if it's color or not. The whole thing is, what you got to understand is there's a spiritual balance to this world. Spiritual balance to this world.
Okay, look, Elijah's. I hate to have to cut y'all off. This is that was a perfect segue into making this a part 2, which we will have to do because of time. And we have another engagement that we have to get to. But yeah, Elijah, that was a perfect segue into making this a part 2. Absolutely.
Y'all call me, man. I'll work with y'all now. Y'all call me.
Absolutely.
Y'all call me. I love jumping in.
So could I go ahead and conclude us? We all
good?
Sir. So yes.
We only talked about the one article, so you don't have to. You just could.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So again, like G was saying, we will be having both of you on for part 2. We'll make sure to schedule that because this is great conversation. Definitely stuff we got to talk about. I want to thank you to all of our viewers. Please make sure to follow us on all of our social platforms. We got Macam Make a Chess Move, Macam Make a Culture Move, Virtual Art of Storytelling, Pushing Pawns. Follow us on Instagram at Macam303, Pinterest at 303, and make sure to follow and subscribe to our YouTube at Macam Make a Chess Move. Please follow both of these guys. We got the East First Movement and Elijah Huff, and we got the Young Activist Movement. He's all over Instagram. All over. That's your social media platform, right? Just Young Activist.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So yes, sir. We got East First and Elijah Huff.
Visions Apparel.
East First Visions Apparel, absolutely. So yes, thank you all to our guests. We love to see you next time, and to all of our viewers, thank you for commenting, joining with us. See you all Monday, same time. Y'all Macam out there.